what has happened to free speech on so many university campuses, including UVA? Why is it so critical to turn that around now, to face it right now?
I think it's not difficult to pinpoint it. And it really all comes back to the politicization of our college campuses. I mean, for I think most of the history of higher education, the foremost purpose was education, starting probably more than a decade ago. And it started well before, but it really picked up speed in the mid 2000s and really became the most important part of the academia after around 2010 was indoctrination. And it was indoctrination in a social justice policies and an agenda. And I think people now will put a term on it, and it really was the DEI movement, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I wrote an article about it 3 or 4 years ago. It's been in the press a lot recently. I think I called that out a lot earlier. I wasn't the first one. There's a brilliant article by the former dean of the Yale Law School, Dean Kronman, called The Downsides of Diversity. It was published in the Wall Street Journal. And basically, I mean, there's a lot in there, but one of the major points he made is that DEI, as applied on college campuses, is not an academic ideal, but a political movement. And that's exactly what it was. And what makes it most troublesome is that the concept of DEI is not what those words mean. Diversity,
True. Absolutely.
and inclusion. Diversity means diversity of many things, but not the most important diversity, which is diversity of thought.
Yes.
That has been given total short shrift on college campuses. You can read the works of Jonathan Haidt, who is a prior professor at UVA, is now up at NYU. But there was very little diversity of thought amongst in academia, amongst both the administrations and the faculty. Equity means equality of and final, I'd cut for a second, but it's equality of result and not equality of opportunity.
Absolutely.
And inclusion has meant just the opposite. Inclusion has not meant the inclusion of all groups. It's meant the inclusion of certain groups which are deemed to be marginalized and which, in fact, today run the universities both at a faculty, administrative, and student level. But it's not been inclusion, and it's not been inclusivity. And I've seen it very much at UVA, where we had such a close bond, where there was a great community amongst faculty, students, administrators. It really was an amazing place. And now it's divided. It's been fractured, and it's divided by identity groups. And it's broken my heart to see that, because I think, as you kind of detailed in my biography, UVA has been in my heart and soul since I stepped on the grounds in 1966, never truly left it. And it's really terrible to see what's become of the community, the sense of community and camaraderie there.
Well, it's interesting for us in my approach here in Saving America, because we interviewed a fantastic young lady. She happens to be up in a college in Maryland. She's a senior now. She was an intern for the Heritage Society this summer, and I happened to cross her because she wrote a brilliant article. I had no idea it was written by a college junior. And I interviewed her. She's Asian American, and she was so critical of DEI. She said, I want to be respected for who I am and my accomplishments and my intellectual ability. I don't want to be considered something because I'm Asian or female. and she just gave such a compelling presentation on where DEI has failed, but not just I think academia, but our society in general. So anyway, so we've been on this streak for a while, and we've interviewed two different professors on this same subject. We interviewed a professor who was fired from a university in Bakersfield, California, because he spoke out for conservative causes. And before he was fired, by the way, I got a chance to go out and speak on that campus. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I just interviewed Amy Wax, who you may have crossed her name. Is
and
yeah, and it's so interesting because I'm a Penn alum, and she was incredibly penalized. If she didn't have tenure, she'd be out on the street. But they have done some rather incredible things to her for being critical of DEI while being a professor at Penn. So it is interesting to see how things are going.